All right, to my right we have our three esteemed guests. Some of you will know who our guests are, and to some may not, but it's my pleasure to introduce Aliesha Newman. Aliesha Newman, amongst other things, and I'll run through Aliesha in a minute. Aliesha, former little athlete and AFLW footballer for the Melbourne Football Club, and we've got Madeline Hills, who's an elite athlete, dual Commonwealth Games Olympian, dual Commonwealth Games and Rio Olympian, and Darcy Roper, long jumper extraordinaire, to my right here as well. So look, we'll please give them a round of applause. They've been terrific in their support of our event today, and look, part of the reason like to bring, as we've following a tradition in recent years, we had Steve Hooker a couple of years ago. He's a former little athlete and went on to bigger and better things. We had, although he did say to me quite secretly at the time that the pinnacle of his career was to run for Box Hill and little athletics, but he's just kept that between him and me. There was, we had Jerry Clifford last year, of course, who was a recent Diamond Valley little athlete, and he's made a great name for himself in distance athletics on the world stage, as an able-bodied athlete and as an athlete with a disability, doing incredible things. And we stay in close quarters with Joe. He's been continues to be a great supporter of the little athletics movement. Look, I'll start with you, Darcy, actually. So, Darcy, you were born in Brisbane and grew up in Brisbane.
Yes.
And currently a scholar at the Victorian Institute of Sport, and as I mentioned before, long jump is Darcy's go. And I understand, and it's amazing what you can pick out of Google, but you can find a whole lot of stuff. And most of it's pretty good, but you won a bronze medal a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, yeah. 2 weeks ago at the World University Games.
In Naples.
Yeah, yep. So it's still pretty jet lagged, but 3 a.m. 2 days ago, so it was no sleep last night and straight on over here, so but no, I'm happy to be a part of it, so I won't punch against it.
No worries.
Yeah. No, it was 2 days. 2 days.
Oh,
ago.
2 days.
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
Okay, amongst other things as well, you're silver medalist at the 2016 IAAF World Under-20 Championships, currently ranked 12th in the world. PB is 8:13.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I've had a fair bit of success this domestic season, the Australian domestic season, and thought I'd give it a crack taking my success over to Europe, and like I said, just got back from it was a month overseas, so I went over there for the World University Games and competed in a couple of other events over there, but that was, I guess, the main focus, and went okay. So I've really just had the best season of my life, just now, and hoping to continue things up until obviously Tokyo. So. Yeah, that's where we're at the moment.
Good on you. Wow. Okay, very modest. Look, we've got some YouTube footage that we're going to play, and I haven't told you this, but I want you to interpret what's going on here for us, if you don't mind. So, Lockie, if you hit the play button, we'll have a look. The footage is pretty poor, but I would be interested to know who actually took it and whether you know this.
All right, so this was a Canberra Track Classic, and this was during the domestic season. This is round 6, and I was currently in second place. So that jump there was 8:20, and and obviously you can see in the heading, I had a 2.1 on the wind gauge, so unfortunately it was a wind-aided jump and didn't count towards a World Championships qualifying lead. But I was, as you can hear, I was pretty ecstatic. That was pretty emotional for me, that jump, because it was actually my first leap over 8 meters in 3 years, essentially. So I had quite a bit of success as a junior, and managed to jump 8:01 and break the under 18 Australian record. And naturally, being in year 12 and having jumped quite well, I thought, this is 2015, next year's the Rio Olympics. If I just add that much more, I'm going to the Olympics at 17. So it wasn't to happen, and the transition from sort of junior to senior was quite difficult, but I guess we'll get to that in a minute. But anyhow, I hadn't jumped 8 meters in 3 years after that, so that jump there was it was quite a big one, and my training partner jumped 8:06 and took the lead in the 6th round, and then obviously I thought there's just no way I can lose today. I was in such good form, and so and so I went for it, and had a good clap, and it was really good conditions and everything, and managed 8:20. So that was that jump anyhow.
No, that's awesome. The highlight for me was the celebration.
Oh yeah.
It was just an entertainer.
Oh yeah, it was just so much relief. Like it had been such a long time coming, and as you said, being a Brisbane boy, I moved to Victoria to train with John Boas. I guess many of you guys would know him, and he's got Chris Matrosky and Henry Smith and such a good training squad. And so I moved down here to focus on athletics and really stick it to those boys in training and really try and enhance that competitive environment. And it had just shone through in this season. And so I'd made a lot of sacrifices, so I was pretty ecstatic to have jumped that.
There was a bit that came out in that jump, obviously.
It was just get it all out of the system. And then it just kept
love to see it. Terrific. All right, thanks very much. Aliesha, AFL footballer with Melbourne Football Club. Grew up in Braybrook, not too far from here.
Yep.
Former little athlete, I understand, at Werribee, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Yeah, and how long did you compete there for?
I think I started in under 8s and went the whole way through to under 15s.
Okay, and what was your pet discipline?
Oh, I didn't really have one. I kind of just liked all of them.
All rounder?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, very good. Now, Google also threw up this interesting little tidbit. You used to ride your push bike 70 to 90 kilometres a day to earn a trust. What was that all about?
Yeah, I was a postie. So I didn't have a motorbike license. So my sister as well did it with me. So we were riding, delivering the mail every morning. So it was good fun.
No, okay. The electric bikes weren't around at that point.
No, they were, but like you have to actually physically ride to charge it. So it's really no point using it.
Where was your round, just out of interest? Where was your area?
Hobbs Crossing.
Hobbs Crossing, okay. It's in many hills out that direction, not really? No, pretty easy.
Thank God.
You want to gig as a postie on a push bike, Hobbs Crossing probably as good as it gets, I would have thought. All right. Now, I'll get Lockie to hit the button here in a minute, but my boys, I've got 3 boys. They're all over YouTube. And one of their favourite clips is the 50 best goals of all time. And they reckon that this goal that Aliesha kicked a couple of years ago should be on that clip, on this highlight reel. So, Lockie, if you can hit the button there, we'll have a look. This is in 2017, goal of the year.
Chance out to Newman, her first touch stage. We know she loves to run and bounce. She takes on her done, 2 bounces, 3 bounces. Will she go all the way on the outside of the boot? Oh my God!
All right, there you go. Talk us through it, Aliesha. What was going on there? Was it a spur of the moment thing? Was it planned? Were you positioned out in the wings specifically to kick sausages of that? Was that quality or what?
That was actually my first touch in the game. So I literally just ran along.
Right.
And I knew that I had her for pace because we played them before. But I honestly don't know how. Like I positioned the ball the wrong way, and it just so happened. And like there was someone right in this goal square. And if I hadn't have kicked it, I probably would have been benched for the rest of the game. So yeah, I don't know how I kicked it, but yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's great that you ran past probably the slowest player in the field too. It made you look like extra quick.
Well, she actually, so after I kicked that, she got drafted to our team. So we used to give her so much crap because I was like, you're the reason why I kicked goal of the year because you made me look so quick. I'm not actually that quick when I'm running against everyone else. But
No, but a lot of people in the room would have picked up. They ever had to seen Aliesha's style. It's clear that she'd been taught to run, and that came out in it's coming out in your football. We'll perhaps pick up on that theme later. Madeline, your turn. Now, the other guys, Aliesha and Darcy, were just having a joke here, so they can see my notes from where I'm sitting, and Madeline's initially gave me about 4 pages worth of stuff. I had to sort of chunk it down a little bit, but bear with me. And we'll go through Madeline's background. Grew up in Kiama, New South Wales. That's all. Okay. Interstarted, currently also on scholarship at the Institute of Sport here in Victoria. First appeared on the International Athletics track in the early 2000s. Amongst her results, first in the 3,000 metres at 2004 Commonwealth Youth Championships. In 2006, Madeline took an 8-year break to study and establish a career as a pharmacist. And do you continue practicing pharmacy?
I do, yeah.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Returned to the track in 2014. And Madeline qualified for the 3,000 metre steeplechase at the 2014 Glasgow Commonwealth Games, where she placed 4th. Awesome effort. In 2015, she became the 3rd fastest Australian all-time over 3,000 metres and moved into the top 5 in history over the 5,000 metres. Selected for the Rio Olympics in the 3,000 metre steeplechase and 5,000 metres. Competed with a stress reaction in her foot, reaching the Olympic final in both the 3,000 metre steeplechase and 5,000, going on to register PBs with a stress reaction in your foot. Does that mean fracture or not quite?
No, it's like a precursor to
Yeah,
a fracture.
that's right.
Yeah, so warning signs.
Okay. Finished 7th in the steeplechase, the highest result in the history for an Australian at the Games, and 10th in 5,000 metres. In March 2019, Madeline underwent surgery on both hamstrings, and Madeline's sights remain firmly set on 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games. Incredible backstory there, an 8-year break.
Yeah, didn't really ever plan to return to running. It just kind of happened. It just happened, I guess. One of the advantages of being a distance runner is there's so many opportunities just in the community to run, and fun runs is how I got back into running. So I think it was in 2013 I started to think, gosh, you know, I'm really lazy. I did nothing in those 8 years except for maybe bushwalking and I don't know, yeah, leisurely strolls. I was not active. And I thought I'd just try to get back into some running, and started with a walk jog of 20 minutes, and you know, that slowly increased. Picked a fun run.
A walk jog.
It was a walk jog. I'm the biggest advocate of walk jogging for anyone who doesn't run. Yeah, you walk a minute, you jog a minute, and you know, you do that 10 times, and a couple of days later you jog for 2 minutes, walk a minute, and yeah, it's the best way to get back into running. I genuinely was.
From elite athlete to catch to 5K.
Yeah, and I used to come in the door, yeah, my now husband, you know, I'd come in and say, I just ran for 20 minutes, and he kind of knew I'd been a good junior runner, but you know, didn't have a whole lot of understanding of what I'd done, and yeah, those little goals and achievements were still fantastic.
Within that 8 years, did you move away from the athletics community? You developed a completely different circle of life, if you like?
Yeah, I did. I'd gone to Sydney Uni on scholarship for running. I think I had a World Juniors when I was at uni, World Cross Country, things were going really well, qualified for Melbourne Com Games but didn't get selected. I was clearly the 4th athlete, so I shouldn't have been. And then, I don't know, I got an injury. I had an ITB injury, which is one of those ones, I've had a couple of these frustrating ones that there's not a clear return to run date. And I guess in that time I thought, you know, just to help myself cope with the frustration, I you know, started to pursue other things, and inevitably I never returned to running until 2013.
Yep, amazing. All right, well, we've got something for you too, and we want you to interpret this image that Blake will put up on screen in a minute.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'd be very familiar with that, and people in the room here may be familiar with this image as well. And I think over time this will become an iconic image of Australian athletics. Madeline, can you talk us through it?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you're right. That image in the 24 hours, particularly after the race, you know, was everywhere, and obviously it's a fantastic image to have and one I'm very proud of. In the moment, obviously, it felt like nothing we were doing that was spectacular, but for those who don't know sort of where it relates, it was Com Games last year, 10K, and, you know, we finished the race. I had an okay race, I think I actually don't know, 6th, 8th, something. It was below what I'd hoped for, but, you know, you finish the race and you're proud. And I remember turning around waiting for our 3rd Australian to finish, which was Eloise, and, you know, waited for her and gave her a hug, and then I just continued to wait, and obviously the other girls did as well. And the athlete from Lesotho, I think, had maybe 2 laps to go, so it was obviously a couple of minutes we were out there, but it wasn't anything we thought of. You just waited for the next person to come in, and you know, gave them a tap on the back, and yeah, got captured.
Do you have much to do with the Celia and Eloise outside of sort of elite running?
Not really. I mean, we've sort of known each other over the years. Celia's had a really interesting story as well, kind of come and gone, and also had a career. She's a physio. She actually lived in Wollongong briefly when I was running in that 2014-15. So at the time she'd been doing a bit of triathlon, was coming back into running. I think had a few injuries, and again sort of came and went over the last few years, and had an amazing year last year, and unfortunately now struggling with injury.
So yeah, I'd say probably Celia I've had the most to do with, and then Eloise has been around. Gosh, I think she's approaching 40, so she's been around a very, very long time. Yeah.
Yep. No, that's great. So I mean, it's a nice little continuation of that tradition that Australian athletics has of, that iconic John Landy image of him falling down and picking up his helping his. He was another Australian athlete actually. Someone will tell me. Another Australian athlete. Ron Clark with it. Okay, got up and then won the race. That was quite remarkable. But yeah, just a lovely image there. Well done. Okay, Darcy, we'll throw you the first serious question. Tell us a bit about your junior sport career and your transition into senior career, and you're in the process of it.
Yeah, still. I'm only 21, turned 21 in March, but I always did little athletics from a very young age, from under 8s, and I intended on doing it all the way through till under 17s, but things kind of get in the way with school and kind of your school athletics, and then kind of the other, there's like little athletics and club athletics as well. Yeah, life. And I was among athletics, I was playing other sports as well. So, but anyhow, I started at under 8s and went all the way through to under 16s. But when transitioning from junior to senior, there's a lot of things that obviously change among kind of performance standards and that kind of thing. But acknowledging the fact that everyone has to make sacrifices, and I had to give away footy and volleyball and everything else, and it is a pretty tough transition, and you sort of question, am I making the right decision, and is athletics for me, and then all of those things sort of tick over and whatnot. But the main thing is obviously, if I'm still having fun, then this is probably still for me, and that was always the case, particularly with long jump. I wasn't always a long jumper, but it's just the event that kind of found me, and that's the event that I had the most fun in. But that transition, as you said, I'm still somewhat in it, and I haven't actually made a senior team yet. So I went to World Youths during Year 12 in 2015 and placed second there, and that's where I jumped my 801. And then the following year in 2016, started university, and then there was World Juniors coming up, and so all of those little changes, moving out of home, and I actually went to boarding school in Year 12, and so living boarding house was a big change. Obviously, having to cook yourself and clean after yourself and all those things. It was a big load to take on, and a lot of stress, additional stress, and that definitely affects training and just the overall energy levels and those kinds of things. But having made the move from Brisbane down to Victoria, and then again starting a clean slate and getting all of those lifestyle factors in place, it's definitely made a huge difference. Just I can't even begin to express how big of a difference it's made in my training, and so that transition, like I said, it's still in play, but hopefully we'll be looking at making my first senior team potentially in September. Having jumped 813 in March, it's highly likely that I'll gain the roll down selection for the World Championship. So so things are definitely starting to fall into place in sort of senior athletics.
No, terrific. Did I Google machine threw out another interesting stat? You ripped out a jump of 832.
I did, yeah, in Perth.
Those are wind assisted, presumably.
It was, unfortunately. Yeah. It was a real bugger. It was. It was. I mean, it would have been life changing, and it was life changing anyhow, because I jumped the distance, so I know what I need to do to hit that distance again. And there wasn't a breath of wind a whole night in any event, and somehow I managed to get the windy gust on my jump. So it was unfortunate that it won't count, obviously, for qualifiers, and it would have been an automatic qualifier for the Tokyo Olympics and obviously World Championships. But nonetheless, with this new IAAF points ranking system, it still gained quite a substantial amount of points, and so that helps in terms of selection for teams and those kinds of things. But yeah, nonetheless, that was a great leap, and windy jumps do suck because they don't get you on teams. But it's good that you know your ability and you know your capabilities, and it's just replicating that feel without the wind.
Okay, look, I'm going to deviate. I'll script here for a second, but the world record holder before Carl, who's the record holder now?
Mike Powell.
Mike Powell?
Yeah.
Before him, I think it was Carl Lewis, is that correct?
Anyway,
prior to him was Bob Beeman.
Bob Beeman, yeah.
So he jumped out of the pit in 1968.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he was a terrible trainer, I understand, had lots of natural talent, but just hit the board and the timing, everything just came together. And is that how you feel when you nail a long jump?
Yeah. I've learned a lot this domestic season, and I know for a fact that when I was younger, I used to try and just G up and muscle it as much as I could, but having changed coaches, and Johnny Bowles has got a lot of experience, and he's really taught me, and you hear it all the time with long jump, just run off the board. But until that actually happens and you really understand and appreciate the weight of that term, run off the board, it really does make a huge difference. And I'm much the same. I'm pretty ordinary jumper in training, and I'm basically I'll be the first to admit I'm a sprinter who can jump. I'm not a jumping talent or a jumping extraordinaire. I basically will utilise my speed as much as I can to carry me the distance. So you see a lot of jumpers like that. Greg Rutherford, he was one. He got about this far off the ground in all of his jumps, but somehow managed to go 820s regularly. So it is a funny event. You don't really like. If you see a bunch of long jumpers, they can be tall and skinny or short and solid, and it's definitely a funny one, and everyone has their own flavour and style of jumping. But I'm sure that everyone's got their own sort of take on that, that pop and that feel. But mine is certainly, if I'm the fastest on the runway, I can't lose, and that's how I process things.
Yeah, no, terrific. Yeah. All right, thank you. All right, Aliesha, can you tell us a bit about your junior sports career? We hit on the fact that you were at Werribee, Little Athletics Centre. You probably did other sports as well. And tell us a little bit about your career transition into senior sport in whatever sports that you pursued.
Yeah, so I did Little Athletics up until under 15s. So that was the end for us. We didn't have 16s or 17s or anything. And then I went into senior athletics for Western Athletics. And then during that period, I think I had one season of just all of that was no cross coding. It was just purely athletics. And then I started to play soccer because I wanted to play a team sport more than relay and whatnot, because that's really the only team sport you can do in athletics. So I went to play soccer. I originally wanted to play footy, but Mum never let me because she said I was too small and I'd get injured too much. So she steered me towards, which is true? Correct, yes. So I'm actually out injured at the moment with concussion. So I've had a fair few of those, but I guess I can lead into that a little bit later. But so she steered me towards soccer. So I played soccer for 10 years, and I was kind of cross-coding with athletics and soccer at that stage, and it wasn't until I think I was in my third season of soccer where I cut athletics out completely because I just couldn't do the both, as well as going to school and trying to work as well. So I had to choose a sport, and my sport was soccer. And then from there I was almost getting to high level soccer, as in I trialled with Melbourne City for the season that I actually trialled with Melbourne Demons, and just so happened to be that I got cut from Melbourne City and picked up by Demons within 2 weeks. So, and then I cut soccer out completely and just all played footy. So, and I played footy for the last 4 years now. So,
did you play footy as a kid?
I did in primary school and high school, just those inter-school sports, but nothing major. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, Madeline, tell us about your junior sports career and your transition to senior sport.
Oh gosh, mine's very different than the standard. I guess I'd say it was very patchy. I did Little Athletics, I think, under 9s and under 10s, and that was actually all. And my reasoning for that was I went to high school when I was 10 years old, and I remember sort of feeling like little athletics was not something you could do as a high schooler, which is absolutely ridiculous, obviously, but I remember that being my absolute standpoint on it. Turned out I should have definitely continued, because when I went to high school there actually wasn't even an age group for me, because no one is 10 in high school. And it kind of probably was a big factor to why I stopped running for a couple of years. You know, a 10-year-old is quite hard to compete against 12 and 13-year-old girls, and so I always ran at school, but you know, wasn't really able to progress that much further. Got back into running again, I think when I was about 16. Went to World Juniors maybe the next year. Had a couple of years again, and then, as I said, you know, sort of disengaged again when I was about 19. And then returned back into the running. So I guess, yeah, mine's very different, but it's always been running. I have zero coordination, as you can tell by my nice little wound on the chin, which I gained a few days ago from running. Fell over myself. It's really ironic that I did so well in an event at the Olympics that you have to jump over 35 barriers. I've never fallen in that one. Oh, no, never fallen in that one. Yeah, so mine very, very varied. And I guess, you know, when I questioned kind of why that was, I think I just never really established. I have very supportive parents, but very unathletic parents. Even now, I'm quite sure they couldn't tell you how many times I have to run around the track to get to 5K or a PB or anything. They're very supportive, but quite the knowledge is lacking. And I think that's really what it was. I moved to Sydney when I was 17 to go to uni, and I just never really had that support structure around me and didn't really understand how important it was. So I think it made it very easy for me to fall out of the running. And I think as a senior, that's something I've really valued is understanding the importance of the people around me.
No, very good. Look, this tidbit came up in the office actually the other day. Someone who knows it quite well. You don't know this, but they suggested that you were an elite pianist. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. So music was my focus in school, and I used to wake up at like 5:30 every morning and go downstairs. Dad wakes up at 5:32, so he'd come and wake me up, and I'd just play the piano for a couple of hours before I went to school. And I don't know how my siblings.
A couple of hours?
Yeah,
right.
yeah. And I'd have all these toys like lined up across the piano, and I don't know, they got points or something if they did the scale well or something. I can't remember how the system worked, but the piano was covered in toys. Yeah, and I'd do it for a few hours, and Mum and my siblings would be upstairs asleep, and that's what I did. Yeah.
What lessons do you think that musicians can teach athletes?
Practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Discipline. I don't know. I really got into that routine
Yeah.
of waking up early and doing it all the time.
Yeah.
The difference is though you can cram practice piano and you can't cram practice.
So did you
training.
do exams and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I did. So I did like my Amos and Elmas when I was, I don't know, 14 and 16 or something.
Which is like going to a championship, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, absolutely. Nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And did kind of consider pursuing that. But I think the thing I really love about running, particularly, or sport, is it's not subjective. You know, for me, I either finish in front of someone or I don't. You run the time or you don't. And obviously music's a bit different.
Yep. No, very good. Okay, all right, Darcy, back to yourself. What have been the significant challenges for you as an athlete? You've got your peers who, presumably there's a bunch of them back in Queensland who are off doing their other stuff that 21-year-old blokes do and girls do. You're not, you're down here. You're away from them.
Yeah, well,
and you're living your life as an elite athlete.
Yeah, just going on that, my mates, that was a huge challenge leaving. I was living with a bunch of blokes, 5 of us in one apartment. Was pretty disgusting. And, you know, we had a few too many weekends out, and that was a big thing. You know, leaving school and trying to transition from a junior athlete to a senior athlete. You know, you can't be going out every night with your mates and those kinds of things, and you have to make those sacrifices. So obviously, leaving that household was, you know, was the right decision for my athletic career, obviously. But the big one is injuries. You know, it's always such a gamble, such a fine line when you're trying to push your body to its absolute limits. You know, something's bound to go sometimes, and obviously long jump is a pretty high impact sort of event. And I've been quite injured through that transition period, and when you sort of go from being, you know, 5'5" to 6 foot like that, you know, the body goes through quite a big change, and you know, the shin splints come into factor, and yeah, there's a whole lot of changes. But I mean, injuries is for me has been a huge challenge, and I was due to compete in the London Diamond League a few weeks ago, and I pulled out last minute because I tried to play it safe, and it would have been a huge experience for me. I competed in my first Diamond League in Lausanne, a few weeks back, and that was amazing, and I was really hoping to continue the hit out over there, and then I jumped in Naples, and I only had 3 jumps at the World Unis, so I jumped at 790 in the second round, and I was lucky enough that got me the bronze medal, but I knew that the risk was there, and I felt it kind of niggling, and I felt it tightening up, and I just had to say, well, we're going to have to pull the pin if we want to get back home and recover and prepare for the World Championship. So
speak at the conference.
Yeah, speak at the conference, of course. Yeah. But yeah, injuries is definitely the biggest challenge for me.
No, terrific. All right, thank you, Aliesha. Lead, I think your story is obviously different. Part of the reason I should explain as to why you're here is because you do offer a bit of light to shade, compared to the other athletes here. Your story is a little bit different. So, how about your challenges there? As an elite athlete, cycling 90 k's on a bike, trying to balance that with soccer and other stuff.
Obviously I've done a fair few different things, whether that be a postie. I did that for 2 years, but I had to find something else because I was going into that semi-professional with football, and I just could not handle pre-season and going into the season with riding that many. Like, I was getting to training and I was falling asleep, and I couldn't physically get out on the track because I was just so sore from riding. Like, the bike weighed more than I did, so when it fell over, so if it was in the wind or it was just terrible, and because my sister's a weightlifter. So I'd have to call her and be like, because we were rounds right next to each other, so I'd be like, you're going to have to come to this street because I can't pick up the bike. Like, because with all the mail on it and stuff like that, like, it just weighed so much, so I couldn't pick it up. So I'd call her regularly to be like, can you come and help me? So strength is not a big thing of mine. The speed is obviously something that I pride my game on, I guess. But there's a lot of injuries that I've gone through. Obviously, with every person that plays sport, you have these injuries. Mine have more so been around concussion. So coming from soccer and having a background where you've just got, like, you can only get hit from in front of you, you can't get hit from behind or any other angle. I came into my first practice match with Melbourne and I got a double concussion, just because I had no awareness at all. I was like, oh, I've got the ball, yep, pick it up, and I got hit straight away. So, like, just little things like that, like just not knowing awareness. It's taken me 4 years, and I still am only just starting to kind of get used to the contact and stuff like that. And then obviously, I guess a big thing for women's football is it being women's football. Coming into a male-dominated sport, it's been really hard for us to kind of feel accepted, I guess, in that sport. Like, you have a lot of social media and stuff like that, and some of the comments that you read kind of get you a little bit down. But I guess the only thing is that you're doing something that you love, and you're doing something that other girls can now see that you're doing this and you're creating paths for them. And then so I guess obviously growing up you never had female role models other than, I think everyone's just Kath Freeman, so that doesn't play a contact sport. So for all these girls and even boys now growing up, like, I've got a godson that's 7 and he comes to my games and I think he's more passionate than I am. Like, we lost a game last year and I came off crying and he was crying more than I was, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, you're not even playing. But like just little things like that, like just knowing that kids can now look up to females and in the football space. But I guess that's probably the 2 biggest challenges that I've faced. Yeah,
well, AFL is obviously playing catch up with regards to its involvement and inclusiveness of women, and you're at the vanguard of all of that, so you have all the same trappings as any other young woman your age would have in terms of social media and social opportunities and those sorts of things. And of course, being at the vanguard exposes you a little bit more, I would argue, than say what the men do, for example. Very good. Okay, Madeline. Significant challenges being faced by you as an elite athlete. I'm sure you've got a few stories to tell in that regard.
Well, they're covered up at the moment.
Sympathise with your hamstrings, by the way.
Yeah, the chronic sort of
mine are worse than yours.
Yeah, or I don't know. I was pretty good. Yeah, I jump on the injury bandwagon as well. I think for me, I have genuinely jam-packed a lot into the last 5 years, and that's fantastic. And I probably do feel like I wouldn't have quite achieved what I did if I hadn't, but that does mean that fine line that we push. I've pushed a lot, and I think the Olympics. Two of us, Jen Lacars as well, and I, we both thought it was a great idea to double in the steeplechase and the 5K. I'm pretty sure that's never been done by anyone anywhere in the world, and it worked for us. We both, ran PBs and great placings. Ended up being 4 races in 6 days or something, in 35-degree heat in Rio, when all the excitement, intensity, and I think I got through it relatively unscathed. I was running on a stress reaction, which somehow survived. But I think sometimes pushing those boundaries that much has maybe been in some ways a bit of a factor in why I've had a few up and down years the last couple of years. I seem to be able to piece things together each time. For a major championship, that Commonwealth Games last year, I had an Achilles injury leading into it. Hadn't really run except for the 4 or 5 weeks beforehand, and hadn't raced for I don't know how many months, 6, 7, 8 months before the trial. So I think, for me, injury, I've definitely experienced a lot, but it probably is because I've really thought, what, I'm going to do everything I can in this short period of time, and it'll unquestionably affect my longevity, but I don't regret it. But yeah, definitely injury still is the challenge. The current one, hamstrings, I've had a pain in the butt, the lower butt for both sides for a long time, probably 12 months, and sort of ran through it as medically advised, but eventually got to the point where running was absolutely miserable, and essentially I was stopped in my tracks. So I had surgery now, I guess 4 months ago. I actually had it done in Finland. It was the technique they use, they don't really use in Australia. I had a couple of surgeons tell me they thought they could give it a go, and didn't really sit quite well with me. I don't think I left those appointments very positively. My dad and I actually got on a plane in March and headed over to Finland. The surgeons were operated on some athletes far, far better than me. They were David Beckham's surgeon and Harley Gabriselesi. I think a lot of the footballers over there, and the Serbian president as well have been operated on by these guys. And so far so good. But yeah, hopefully, it fixes the problem, and I can be standing in a green and gold with Darcy next year.
Indeed. All right, Darcy. Aspirations for the next 18 months. So clearly Tokyo is on the agenda.
Yeah.
Anything beyond that as well? Let's talk about Tokyo first. And what the road is towards there, and challenges and all that stuff.
Tokyo is the obvious one for both of us, I guess. The World Championships is only 9 weeks away as of yesterday, so that is my immediate focus, and getting prepared for that. So I'm going to take things one step at a time and not try to get too far ahead of myself. I think that definitely the whole Olympics got the best of me in Rio, where I was jumping okay as a junior, and I was likely to be selected, and Henry Frayne, he was jumping quite well, and Fabrice, he was still around, and so there was quite a bit of competition. I thought this is really my time as the next junior coming up to stick it to the older fellas, but that whole pressure and thinking too far ahead instead of just trusting in the process and actually taking it step by step, that totally got the best of me. And when it came time for the trials at Nationals, I just completely lost it. And I'd actually been jumping very well, and actually the best that I had ever been training. And I should have performed a lot better than I did, but it was that whole expectation of, this is it, you need to run a lot harder than you ever have. You need to try a lot harder than you ever have. And thinking too far ahead definitely got the better of me. But, I'm going to just take it step by step and continue to just trust in the process. In time, the days will still tick by, and training will still tick by. And as long as I can execute what I need to execute in training, getting to Tokyo will hopefully happen just given the trajectory that we've been on lately. But yeah, it would definitely be nice, but like I can't get too far ahead of myself, and I need to stay grounded and keep working hard, because I guess right now there's a little bit of a gap in the men's long jump in Australia. Obviously, Frayne had an incredible season last year, and he's been sort of riddled with a little bit of injuries and stuff, and missed out on the domestic season, and so he's our most senior jumper in Australia, and I guess myself and the rest of the boys at training, we're all looking to kind of knock him off the block, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself and try and say that I'm the best long jumper in Australia at the moment. Although the rankings show that, I still need to stay hungry, and I still need to trust in the process and just take it step by step.
Okay, so how do you qualify?
So for the World Championships, jump 8:17, and and that's the automatic standard. And essentially, you're in. Things always get complicated with. I missed out on the national championships again due to injury, so things get a little bit complicated in that respect. But if you don't meet the automatic qualifying standard, then essentially the IAAF allow for 32 spots in the men's long jump, and there's never been a championships where those 32 spots were completely taken up by men who've jumped over 8:17, because it is quite a solid mark. And so basically what they do is they'll fill as many spots as they can with the automatic qualifiers, and then of those remaining places, be it 12 or 8 or however many, they literally will just take the next best ranked on distance. And so out of those 32, on distance alone with the 8:13, not with windy jumps 8:20s or the 8:32 or anything, with 8:13, I currently sit 19th, and so I'm pretty comfortably inside that top 32. And so, like I said, it is highly likely that I will go to the World Champs, but I need to obviously just continue to train as per usual and continue to stay healthy. But beyond that, with Tokyo, things have changed in the last year or so, with the IAAF announcing their new ranking system. And so essentially across all events, they've basically upped the performance standard quite significantly. The Olympic qualifying standard used to be 8:15, and it's now gone to 8:22 is the automatic standard, which is absolutely enormous. And 8:22 would most Olympics get you a medal, and London, would have got you a silver medal, and that is the qualifying standard. So it is totally different now. And so basically what they're banking on is, and it is a good system, is they're going to still take those automatic qualifiers in that top 32 in the world. So there will probably be 8-10 fellas that'll jump 8:22 or above, and so they'll be automatically selected. From that, they're going to take the remainder of the field to the 32nd place based off of a points scheme, a point system. And that point system is taken from your 5 best jumps, essentially. But those 5 jumps need to be, well, should be at what are classified as legitimate events, if you will. So they have designed this scheme in that nationals is a legitimate enough event, and so it's an A standard. But if you jump out at Box Hill on a Friday night, it's a fairly illegitimate event, and so that will be what's ranked as, say, a D or an E class meet, and it gets you, say, no points. So you may jump 8:50, but you're not going to get the placing points from jumping at a legitimate event to boost you up. So, it is quite complicated in that respect, and the wind changes things. So if you have a wind day to jump, it will deduct points and so on and so forth. But the key is essentially, if you're a consistent jumper around that 8:10, 8:12, 8:15, whatever mark, and you have 5 good jumps against your name at good meets, you're pretty well.
You're well placed.
So, yeah, and that's what's gotten me up, to 12th place currently on the rankings list, because I've jumped in Europe at some pretty good meets and jumped pretty well and gained some pretty good points. So.
We'll wish you all the very best with that challenge.
Yeah,
looks like
sorry about the lecture on that, the points, but yeah,
it's very complicated.
But yeah, that's basically the process, and you just got consistency is key, I guess. So.
All right, that's a good message. All right, Aliesha, next 18 months, what's the world of sport looking like for you?
Well, at the moment, I'm just trying to get back on the track. So I've had 7 weeks out with concussion, and I'm done for the rest of the season. So this is our VFL season. So we're on. So this is kind of classed as our off season, where we kind of get the grips of everything and then go into AFL. So yeah, I'm kind of struggling at the moment with the concussion. So all up, this is my 7th since I started playing. So yeah, the head's been knocked around a fair bit, so you can understand why Mum didn't want me to play in the first place. So she's already spoken to a company to get me a helmet sponsor, so I'm going to be wearing something a little bit different in this coming AFLW season. But yeah, like I've gone.
Helmets win votes. You realise that? Get a fluoro helmet. I can
I'm
speak
not
from
wearing a
experience. It
fluoro
gets
helmet.
votes.
There is no way I'm wearing a fluoro helmet. Yeah, like I guess I'm just trying to kind of get myself right. I've only just started running last week, so it's been a long process to getting out there, and I think I was losing my mind, not like just sitting on the couch, not doing anything. I was going to training, but I was staying inside because it was cold and raining, so there was really no point me even being there. But yeah, so I'm just trying to. I'm on the mend at the moment, so I think next week I can start non-contact training, so that's pretty exciting.
Is it aiming for AFLW again towards the end of the season?
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
I've just got to go and see a few more specialists to kind of get the clear of whether I can play again or not. So it was a pretty serious hit with off the ball, so I had no idea she was even there. So she only copped 2 weeks for it. So I've been out for 7, or it'll be all up almost 12 weeks, and she copped 2 weeks for it. So yeah, I think she got a bit stitched up there. But yeah, so I guess the next 18 months is kind of just getting my head right. So I'm working full time as well as kind of trying to play footy at the same time. So and I work at the ATO, so I've got a lot of computer-based work. So I'm not really off my chair much. I can't go and walk around very much. So I kind of they're really flexible and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I guess once I kind of get over this next hurdle is yeah, looking forward to 2020.
Good. Wish you all the best with your health as well.
Thank you.
This is a theme, clearly, health and sport, whether it's good or bad. Madeline, what's your agenda for the next 18 months?
Yeah, well, mine is I think taking the process really slowly. I feel so lucky to have calling them my 2 new legs. I am running pain-free for the first time in a long time, and I'm just not going to take that for granted. So I'm back running. I had 3 months off running, with obviously sort of starting to introduce other things gradually, swimming and then elliptically and then biking and then running, back up to sort of, I guess, 75k a week, so that would be 3/4 of my standard load, but much lower intensity. And mine is a bit hard. I don't have an exact timeline. Even though these guys have done this surgery on a lot of people, they've never done bilateral surgery on an elite distance runner. So that in some ways that's good. It allows me to, rather than follow a protocol of what my rehab should be, it encourages me to listen to my body, which so far so good. We haven't had any setbacks. But mine's definitely, all things ahead, trying to get to Tokyo as well. Thanks, Darcy, for explaining that, because the point system is really complicated. And I guess being injured and obviously sitting out all of this year means that I'm at a disadvantage in terms of gaining points. But for me, the qualifiers have been made a lot harder, but fortunately I've run the qualifiers in my events multiple times. So I feel confident that, provided I can get back to training, I really believe I can run the times, and I think I've got enough time to do it. The interesting thing, I guess, is picking what event I do. So hurdling will obviously pose extra challenges for the hamstrings. There are high hurdlers who've returned to running from the surgery, but I don't know how mine will go. So I'm looking at somewhere between the 3k steeplechase, the 5k and the 10k, which I've successfully run, I guess, over the last couple of years. And I won't make that decision really until, I guess, the end of the year. So yeah, that's my kind of goal, just getting there and having a chance to see if I can do it all again.
Terrific. All right. There's one very quick question to finish off with. Just about out of time, but this is an unashamedly loaded question. But looking back, what's been the significance, Darcy, in 20 words or less, of your little athletics career on where you are now?
The most significant junior experience.
But the significance of...
What is the significance of it?
Is there any significance?
There certainly is. There certainly is.
That was the right answer.
That's what we all came for, isn't it? No, look, there certainly is. It's definitely having fun. I know we're all serious people, and athletics is somewhat of a serious sport. And as much as my mum probably would have liked to lock me into athletics, when I started little A's way back, in under 8s, that's just not the reality of a young kid growing up. They're going to play other sports, and they're going to want to hang out with their friends, and they're going to want to do a lot of other things that young kids do and whatnot. But as long as we're having fun while we're doing it, that is what's going to ultimately keep young kids in the sport. And that's definitely what kept me in the sport. And I never chose to do long jump from a young age, and I did absolutely everything. And that's why Little Athletics was great, because I'm not sure how it works in Victoria, but we would rock up on a Friday night and you get your list of 5 events or 6 events, and shot put's thrown in there and hurdles is thrown in there, and you got a bloody 1500 at the end, and you just 1500. But it's still very fun, and jogging as slow as you can right until the last 100 metres and sprinting past all your mates. It is still very fun, and I can't throw a javelin to save my life, but even still, that is very fun. And we have in Queensland tiny tots now, and they throw little vortex and things like that. And it is a very fun sport to get involved in from a young age. And so, as long as you don't get those parents and those kids that are really serious about one, and they'll tank all the other events on the night just to focus on their favourite one, like that is.
That's just a Queensland thing.
Yeah, well, that's good. But look, as long as everyone's having fun at the end of the day, it's going to create a great environment for the parents and the staff and obviously the athletes as well. So as long as everyone's having fun, that's the way to go.
All right, good one. Thanks very much, Aliesha. Looking back on Little Athletics, what's the significance of that of where you are now?
I think the significance is coaching. So I went through the whole of Little Athletics just with my coach obviously, and then as soon as I finished I had younger siblings, so I kind of stepped into that relay coaching, and then I did that for a few years, and then I actually ended up being the coordinator of On Track. So I went and did my On Track certificate, and was the On Track coordinator for I think 2 or 3 years at Werribee. So I think just kind of the love of giving back, I think, is something that I kind of got from the lads. All the kids are so eager to come and to do athletics and whatnot. So I think just kind of teaching them and showing them the ways, I guess, is probably the biggest thing that I got out of the lads.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. And Madeline?
I don't know if this really answers the question that well, but probably one of the things I think sport's given me, and certainly from the junior age and then throughout, is exposure to all different sorts of people. In Little Athletics and through state cross country, you meet people from all sorts of socioeconomic groups and different areas, and you're all the same when you're running. And I think it's a good way for people to kind of realise that your little bubble that you live in, there's a big bubble outside of that, and you get a chance to be exposed to that. And certainly, as you start to travel overseas, you realise how diverse the world is, and how your little problems are really not very big problems. And I just think it puts things into perspective.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks very much, guys. It's awesome. Before we wind up, I'd like to throw the room, if you've got time to hang around for 5 minutes or so. I'm sure there'll be some questions from the floor. Anyone like to lead off? Shaz.
So I think I started school when I was 4, and then I skipped a year. And I was in a composite class. I think it was a year 2, year 3 class or something, and the teacher sort of let me do a lot of the year 3 stuff. And then we sat down at the end of the year with a psychologist and talked about whether it was a good decision for me to go up in age. And it was actually quite funny because it ended up putting me up into the same school year as my brother, who's a year and a half older than me. And I'm sure that was pretty challenging for him at times. But yeah, ended up at 10 and finished school when I was 16.
Question in the front.
When you're chatting with young kids and younger adults, and especially for little us kids, what kind of messages have you been giving them, and how have they been resonating?
Would you like me to?
For the whole.
Yeah, chatting to young kids. My angle is always to have fun and not get too bogged down with the seriousness of the sport, because they will find out very quickly when they do transition into that more senior athletics that it does get very serious very quickly, and there are a lot of careers at stake and those sorts of things, particularly amongst the state institutes, and and as like I said before, as long as they're having fun and whatnot, that is really the main thing that's going to keep kids in sport, because you always get those early bloomers, the man-childs, that'll they win the nationals by a long shot, and everyone's asking for the birth certificate and those kinds of things. And it is challenging, but as long as everyone's still having fun, that's going to keep those, maybe those third and those fourth place getters in that 100 metres at the nationals. It's going to keep them in the sport. Otherwise, they'll just probably nick off and go play another one that is more fun, because team sports are ultimately more fun. That's always my take on it every time. It's just always that fun.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
All right, 2 more questions. Yes, from Nelson.
Darcy, just a quick question. I had the privilege of sitting next to your mother on a flight to Perth in 2016 over to Australian Juniors. I recall an interesting story about how you actually got into boarding school. Are you able to share that?
Yeah. Oh, geez, we could be here for hours, honestly. My mum is, absolutely love my mum, adore my mum, but mum and dad, they split up when I was maybe 13 or 14. And my father found a new partner, and my mum found her old high school partner. And anyhow, so, had this whole new family and whatnot, but basically, I had a lot of troubles at home. I didn't struggle in that transition period picking sides, but mum actually moved back down to Bendigo from Brisbane. So she lives in Bendigo now, and I kind of had to make a decision. Do I move to Bendigo at 12 or 13 years old, or do I stay in Brisbane with all my mates and yada, yada, yada? So I stayed in Brisbane and ultimately had a lot of troubles at home with my father and his new partner. And anyway, it is an enormous story, but I couldn't stand living in that household, and they had a lot of falling out, and I got involved, and it really got seriously ugly. So basically one night I just packed up my bags and called the train into school and said, have you got a spare room? And that was that, and I was a boarder from that day on. And and so then there was more struggles that came with that once graduating, because I've just left the boarding house, and that they had everything for me, and so then I just had nothing essentially. So there was a lot of challenges that came from that transition through trying to stay true to my athletics and stay involved in athletics, and trying to find somewhere to sleep at night and those kinds of things. So it was an enormous story, but like I said, we could be here for hours, but essentially I just had a whole heap of home troubles, and I knew that I had to get out of there and enroll with some. No, don't feel sorry at all. Look,
Come out the other side amazingly well.
Yeah, look, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself and about my family, in that time, and I'm not sad about it or anything at all, and that's their issue, and that's something they have to sort out. But it was just unfortunate that obviously.
Your mum sugarcoated that on the airplane. Using the way she told the story.
Look, she was great about it, and I'm glad to be down here now, and I have a whole new family and that kind of thing. So I'm fine now, so I don't feel sorry for you. It was tough times I had at the time.
All right, look, on that positive note, we might bring it to a close. Look, can everyone please thank Aliesha Newman, Madeline Hills, up on a Saturday morning in Preston. Thanks so much for your help, guys. It's amazing. I'll also pass on my assistance to the folks at the VIS too, who helped us out. Thanks. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Best of luck with your injuries, all of you. And next 18 months. Thank you. Fantastic. Thanks, Aliesha. Thanks, Madeline. Terrific.